So we'll do a quick introduction. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Dan Buttry. I serve as the President and CEO at the War Memorial Center. And this year is what we're calling Operation 3020. Operation 3020 is recognition of 30-year anniversary this year of the Desert Storm, and then 20-year anniversary in September of 9/11 and all the conflicts that have occurred over time. And in fact, there are 19 Department of Defense expeditionary ribbons that were packed in that massive amount of year. And I can only imagine a number of our panelists are all so familiar with some of these expeditions. So, and all the men and women who have served each and every one of these deployments. And so this year, which this month and this Monday was International Women History Day, and this week we really wanted to honor and recognize military leaders, female veterans who have served their country both in uniform and continue to serve. And so it's an honor to introduce today's moderator. Donna Drew comes to us by way of the VA mental health team that we work with in collaboration. And Donna, thank you so much for taking on the task today of being our moderator, and the floor is yours.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Dan. My name is Donna Drew. I am a United States Marine Corps veteran. I served in 89 to 93. And currently I am a member, I work in the VA, Milwaukee VA, and I'm a member of the Southeastern Wisconsin Task Force on Veteran Suicide. So I'd like to first just take this opportunity to thank all these influential women that who are on our panel today. I'm honored to be able to celebrate this Women's History Month with these women, and to talk about and learn about how they overcame their obstacles and challenges as they proudly served our nation. So I first would like to introduce, I apologize, a slide here of all of the panels that I will be introducing. First one is Major General Marsha Anderson. In 2008, she became, I apologize, she was U.S. Army Reserve veteran. She served from 1975 to 2016. She was promoted to a brigadier general, making her the highest ranking African-American woman in the Army Reserve. In 2011, she became the first African-American woman to receive 2 stars as a major general in the U.S. Army Reserve. And after 37 of dedicated service, she retired from the military in 2016 as a deputy chief of the Army Reserve. Our second panelist is Secretary Mary Kolar. She served in the U.S. Navy from 1980 to 2008. She was commissioned in the U.S. Navy in 1980, served on active duty for 28 years, retiring as a captain. During her military career, she served various commands and staff positions across the nation, spending much of her time recruiting, training, educating, and leading sailors. The third one, Dr. Bertie Krauser. She served in the United States Army Reserve from 1993 to 2009. Dr. Krauser joined the Army Reserves in 1993 in high school and attended basic training at Fort Leonard, Missouri, completing her advanced individual training at Fort Lee. After earning her first degree, Dr. Krauser was commissioned as a second lieutenant in her U.S. Army, and completed her U.S. Army Quartermaster Officer basic training course in 2000. And finally, last but not least, there is Bonnie Freudinger, U.S. Air Force. In 1987, she joined until 2008. She's had 22 years of military service and aircraft maintenance, including 6 years of active, 4 years civil service as an Air Reserve technician, and also has 12 years as a drilling reservist. Currently, right now, she is a biomedical engineer working at the Medical College of Wisconsin. So again, I would like to thank everybody, thank you women for being here. I know if we were not virtual, there would be a huge round of applause for you. So I'm sending that to you. So let's jump right in. We have lots of things to discuss and a lot of powerful things I'd want to get to. The first question, I really love this question because I think it really kind of gets to the soul of us female veterans, what influenced you or your choice to serve in the U.S. Armed Forces? And with that too, if you wanted to, what also the question kind of with that is what influenced you to choose your particular branch? So if we could start, let's start with General Anderson. That would be great.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. And I'm very, very pleased and honored to be with this great group today and to talk about these topics. First, and on a very serious note, I was always proud to serve, had members of my family who had served. My dad was in the Korean War, had an uncle who served in Vietnam and was stationed at Da Nang during some of the fiercest conflict during Vietnam. What personally influenced me, though, to be honest, was when I was in college, I needed a science credit. And military science counted as a science credit at my college. And so that's what I signed up for because I couldn't take biology, didn't have time for astronomy. But once I got involved in the ROTC program, I realized it was the right place for me. I needed the opportunity to stretch myself and get some leadership opportunities and training. I got to be with some really great people, and I got to really stretch my skills and abilities things that I got to do I'd never tried before. And so that kind of started me on my way. And it was a decision I never looked back on. And I'm really, really glad that I stuck it out.
That's great. That's great. That's neat how things like that happen, right? You don't expect to jump into something like that. And it was meant to be, definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Kohler, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Donna. It's great to join this distinguished group today and be a part of the War Memorial Center's observance. So like General Anderson, I too was influenced by my family. My grandfather, my father, and 4 brothers all served in our nation's military. Plus, my mother was very active in veteran support organizations. So again, with that family legacy of service, I too wanted to serve. Plus, the Navy's recruiting slogan at the time, "It's not just a job, it's an adventure," certainly influenced my chosen career path.
I love it. Okay, great, great. Is that still their slogan? I'm not quite sure.
No,
It's not. Okay, all right.
There's been, having done a couple tours in recruiting, we tend to change it, and but that's the one that got me.
That's gotcha. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Krauser.
Hi, Donna, and thank
Hi.
you. And again, just to echo what all of the ladies have said on the panel today, I get to be on this awesome panel with such dynamic women. Thank you for the opportunity. And for me, what influenced my choice to join the military was, again, I had several family members that was in the military. My sister, I had aunts, I had uncles, a grandfather. And, again, like Major Anderson said, I was really utilizing this as an avenue to get to college. So I wasn't in college yet. I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want my parents to have to pay for me to go to school. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to join the military and have my education paid for. So that's the reason why I went ahead and just made the choice to join the Army. And it was a great choice.
That is
Thank you.
absolutely. Never look back. Yeah. Great. Thank you. And Bonnie.
Thanks for the opportunity to participate again. It's nice to see that women are being recognized for their service in the military. When I was 18, I was graduating from high school. I knew I wanted to go on to college, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. And I just got done, obviously, like everybody else, doing 12 years of school. And so I had a few older siblings who went in the military, but we didn't have a strong family tradition of military participation. But I thought it would be good that I would go in for 4 years, get the GI Bill, use it as a way to pay for college. And I joined the Air Force specifically because they would guarantee my career field. So I joined as an aircraft electrician. And the reason I picked aircraft electrical systems as my specialty was electricity was the one thing I didn't understand when I was in high school. So I thought before I die, I better learn that. So I did it. I ended up loving it. And I was able to spend 22 and a half years in the military altogether. And I retired as the chief of aircraft maintenance.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I love all, like I said, I love this question because you really get to kind of the heart of us veterans and what made us join. I actually forgot to do some housekeeping before we started this first question. So I'm going to back up a little bit and just tell the audience if there are any questions that you would like to ask or have the panelists answer, please just jot them or type them into the chat box, and we will have somebody monitoring that chat box to be asking these questions at the end. So, all right, thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't say that sooner. This next question, really focusing on empowerment and how our female veterans have been able to empower. So in a primarily or prominently male institution, what examples can you share that empowered you to become a leader? So I will start with this question with Secretary Kohler.
Thank you, Donna. So I want to emphasize that leadership ability depends on competency. Maybe that's something we take for granted, but in the military, yes, it's still overwhelmingly populated by men. But if you or anyone establish a reputation of superior skills, knowledge, and abilities, you will be selected for leadership positions. I also strongly recommend volunteering to take positions that others don't want. I did so more than once in my naval career, and with the positive impact my leadership had at those duty stations, I was then chosen for greater responsibility. So again, always be working on your competencies, your skills and abilities, education, as has been mentioned, to break yourself out particularly when you are of a minority group.
So standing out as an individual.
Yeah, it's all about the team, but again, that's why, to succeed and advance, you need to make sure you stay current and qualified and meet the expectations of the service.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Good advice. Thank you very much. Okay, next, Dr. Krauser. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, Dr. Krauser, I think you're still on mute.
I would agree with Secretary Kohler in saying that in a predominantly male institution and environment, there were still women. And so when I would see the women in my family, the women in my community, they were great listeners. They were communicators. They were people who had empathy. They were multitaskers. And so for me, I took that and I said, how can I make what I see be a reality for me? And so that's what I did. I took those women greats and took a little piece of each one of them and then forged my path into leadership.
Okay, great. So finding not just leaders in the military, but in your family and your community, you work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Look at that. Thank you. Bonnie, your thoughts?
Sure. I'd like to share just one little quick thought. So when I first joined the military in 1987, when I went to my first permanent duty station at Bergstrom Air Force Base, I worked out of a hangar that there were 3 floors to the hangar and 6 bathrooms, and not one of them was a female bathroom. So they're like, well, you can go a block and a half down to the next building and you can use the bathroom over there. And I said, you know what, forget it. I can't, every time I have to go to the bathroom, travel a block and a half, right? So I just said, you know what, you guys have 6 bathrooms here. I'm just going to use this one, okay? I don't care who else is using it, but this is the one I'm going to use. So if you don't want to come in while I'm in here, then understand that this is what's happening. And to be honest with you, most folks were really pretty good about it. There were a few people that were hesitant to have women be in aircraft maintenance, that's for sure. But everywhere that I went, there were always people who were willing to take a chance and work with you and find the positive skills. And then you got to prove yourself, right? You got to demonstrate how you were competent and how you were skilled at what you did, and you had dedication to duty. And as soon as people see that, then you automatically sort of rise to the top. It's kind of just a natural thing. And I was very fortunate. I had people all along the way who were very encouraging and supportive and understood, you know what, there's only a few of us here. When I first joined, again, it was maybe all the aircraft maintenance units, there were about 1,500 people, and there was just a handful of women in the whole group. But over time, people saw you and recognized you and supported you so that you could be your best and prove yourself. And then the rest just sort of falls into place.
Absolutely. So it sounds like finding those other empowered women.
Absolutely.
lift
But
each
also
other
a lot
up.
of men too, who were supportive of me being there. They were key.
Awesome. Great. Those are great examples. Thank you. Next question, kind of tying into this, what were you able to inspire change during your time in service? And any specific ways you were able to, and or just to talk a little bit about inspiring change while you were in the service. If Dr. Krauser could start us off.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna. Again, absolutely. Inspiring change was something that was, of course, if you're going to be a woman in the military, you should inspire change. And still to this day, I have young women, I have young ladies coming to me, asking my opinion or my advice as to their path, just not in the military, but in their civilian careers as well. So when they see a person that looks like them, and I look like them because I have brown skin, they are more apt to say, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's the message that I give to them. If I can do this difficult task, you surely can do this task. And so it's a lot of encouragement, a lot of just motivating individuals to just move forward, and no matter what, to always forge ahead.
Absolutely. So not only did you inspire change when you were in the military, but now as well. That's
absolutely,
yeah. That's what this panel is all about, is seeing that and seeing how you were able to do that as not only in the military, but as leaders out now in the civilian world. So thank you. Bonnie, your thoughts on being able to inspire change?
So I think when I was in, I had lots of opportunities to participate in different things. And, as I went higher up in rank, I became the first, female shop chief, right? I became the first female flight chief. I became the first female, chief of maintenance. So along the way, I didn't set out to be sort of, inspirational to anybody, but I think lots of folks that came behind said, whoa, how'd you do this? And how should I navigate this? There's just certain things that people would come to me with questions, and, having sort of already, gone down that path, I would give advice when I can. But my best advice always was just, what, be good at what you do. If you're good, they don't care if you're a woman, right? If you suck, then everybody hates you, right? But if you're good at what you do, then they'll respect you in the end, and they'll like working with you and having you on the team. So that's probably the best advice that I would give to all those folks.
Absolutely. And just being good at what you do is an inspiration to everybody. Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Kohler?
I didn't know I think General Anderson got skipped on the last question, and I didn't know if you wanted to go to her now or.
She did. I apologize on this prior one. I skipped her on this one.
The last question.
The last question.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry about that.
I thought there were some great answers, so I didn't feel compelled to respond. But I think I was able to inspire change because I was able to break some glass ceilings. I was the first basic training company commander in my division. We did basic training at Fort Jackson. And I, just basically asked the brigade commander, I'd like to be a company commander. I ended up having to run the supply cages for a while, and I'm a personnel officer, so you can imagine. But I was able to do those jobs, to ask questions, to talk to the warrant officers, to talk to my NCOs, and ask them, how do I do this job? And because I want to do it well. And I just continued to do that throughout my career, to work, to try to excel whenever I got an opportunity. Two, as Secretary Kolar indicated, to take on the hard jobs that other people were trying to duck. And one thing I try to tell my mentees is, it's easy to take a unit that's at the top of its game. Their metrics are all off the charts. But when you take a unit that's at the bottom of the heap, they have terrible metrics, their training is terrible, you can take them from 0 to 60, and then you're a star. So don't be afraid to take on those kinds of challenges. And I try to continue to do that throughout my entire career.
And we do have a question that came in on mentoring. So I thought, since the general so appropriately referenced that, if you don't mind, I'll just read it so then the others can expound on it too, because it was timing. Who or what did you see as your mentors and examples that helped as you progressed to your career? So, and I would even say could be it's how are you a mentor, and then who was a potential mentor for you? And that's a question from Pete Kolakowski on the listening in. So I'll mute and be quiet again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody want to take a first shot at it?
I will. Sorry. Most of my mentors, I'd say 95 to 97% were white males, to be blunt and honest. But the consistent theme with them was they watched me work. They saw how I worked with, my warrant officers, the NCOs, my fellow officers, and saw my goal was to take care of my soldiers, do an outstanding job, and help us make our mission. And I had a couple of them tell me that. They knew then as a mentor, because the thing with mentors is, as a mentee, you have to perform for your mentor. So if your mentor has recommended you for a project or an assignment, it's your job to go in there and do a bang up job. And they knew if they called on me for a task, I wasn't going to let them down. I wasn't going to assume that just because they let me in the room that I was good. I had to perform, I had to excel, and I made sure I did that. And so that inspired confidence in them to continue to recommend me for assignments and promotions. And that's the most important thing, that you're not just as a mentee, it's not just great, they love me, they're going to take care of me. You have a role to play too.
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
Also,
Yes.
I'll add to that, just like Major Anders said, I too had two Caucasian E7s, Sergeant Retzloff and Sergeant Hansen, who really pushed me. Coming in as I was enlisted prior to becoming a commissioned officer, but getting that commissioned officer job and just taking over a unit as a lieutenant, that was very difficult. So they mentored me, they helped me, they really helped me be a better officer. So I really, thank them for just being there and providing the guidance that they did, because they really didn't have to do that, especially here in Wisconsin, in Sussex, Wisconsin. That's a difficult place to be as an African American, and being the only African American commander. Everybody else didn't look like me, so they took me under their wing and they helped me, they trained me, and they made me a great officer.
And Donna, my takeaway from this is that with what General Anderson has said and what Bertie has said, you accept the guidance from those who are willing to reach out to you, and it doesn't matter their pay grade. Events like this that generate so many memories, and I'm thinking of Master Chief DeLong when I was a junior officer, and how much time he took, and how valuable his advice was as a senior enlisted. He wasn't in my chain of command at the time, but just a wonderful person to listen to. So it, again, I would emphasize, it doesn't matter the pay grade or what that person looks like. Be willing to accept that guidance from the multitude of people, and be thankful that it is being offered to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's that willingness to be able to want to change, or that willingness to let others reach out to you. I like that. I do.
So one thing I would just like to add to this, I was really mentored by just so many positive people along the way who helped me along in my career. And now at the medical college, one of the things that I like to do, and one of the ways that I continue to serve after I got out of the military, I bring in undergraduate engineering students to work in our lab, and for them, they joke, they say, this is like basic training. What is this? But I insist that they have absolutely high standards and that they perform at a high level always, and that they're committed to the mission. And it's a mission here that we have to do high quality research. But I think for me personally, it's been super important, and it was actually a good way for me to transition into being a full civilian, right? Was to find a way for me to continue to serve and act as a mentor for young students coming up in the engineering field, who really desperately need, guidance and professionalism training and just all the things that make them good long-term engineers and employees and citizens. So.
Absolutely. So we can using our expertise and our training into the civilian world. And we have a question. We want to talk a little bit about that transition and how we did that, how we transitioned from the civilian or military world to the civilian world. But before we get to that that question, I wanted to ask about, from your perspective, what gender discrepancies existed and how did you work through them? If Secretary Kolar could start us out, please.
Yes, always got to find that mute button quick. So, from my Navy perspective, opportunities for women at sea had been very limited by law and policy. When I joined, the opportunity for women to serve at sea and earn a warfare designator were extremely rare, again, for women. So not being warfare qualified greatly limited the positions I was eligible for. But as I mentioned earlier, that is why I did take the less desirable billets and work to have the greatest positive impact while there. In the last 4 decades, thankfully, the opportunities for women to serve at sea continue to expand. So again, to succeed in the Navy and for a greater chance at senior leadership positions, Navy women need that underway experience.
Absolutely. Going, like you said, being the one to do the missions that maybe others don't want to do, and moving forward. Thank you. Dr. Krauser?
Yes, thank you, Donna. Also, I would say, just as it relates to the perspective of gender discrepancies, just having more women available and letting them know that these are opportunities that exist for them, and not just saying, women should be nurses or women should be secretaries. Women are leaders. And as we see, even in our civilian world, we are having more and more women leaders. And so just letting our community know, even when the children are in elementary school, that women are leaders and it's okay to take those leadership roles. It's okay to ask for what you want. And just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you need to be silent. You need to use your voice and let people know that you are here and that there are things that you want done. And so again, I think that just letting the community know that women are here and we ain't going anywhere. We're here to stay.
We ain't going anywhere. I love it. Yes, we are. And as more and more join our armed forces, the stronger we will get. Absolutely. Yes. General Anderson, your thoughts on?
When I came in into the ROTC program, at some point you have to submit a wish list of what job you want to do. And I see Secretary Kolar nodding her head, what you want to do as an officer. And my wish list, quite frankly, did not include at all human capital. I had field artillery on there. I had military intelligence. I had communications. And then when they came back and they branched me, and I was commissioned as a personnel officer, I was annoyed. And when I went to my initial training as an officer for personnel administration, the majority of my class were women. So when I came in, you could put on your wish list whatever you wanted, but they were going to put you where they wanted you. And, I think that has changed. I would like to think it has. I've seen a lot more women as I come up through the ranks in other areas. So hopefully those kinds of things are no longer a practice and a policy in the Army. And I think the other thing is in terms of assignments, opportunities to rise through the ranks in the Army as they are in the Air Force, I'm sure in the Navy and the Marine Corps, depend a lot on the types of jobs you get. And if you don't get a leadership job, that's going to impact you later on in your career. That's going to limit how far you can go. So again, leadership opportunities for women, I think, have changed, and it's going to hopefully, as I like to say, I hope result in a critical mass of women rising to senior levels where it's going to be hard to say, no, you can't be a general. No, you can't be a command sergeant major. No, you can't be a senior warrant officer.
Yes, awesome. Right. I agree. I hope as things carry on too. I have a story of when I was in boot camp back in '89. We would have to take a makeup class, like literally not a makeup class, but a makeup class, like how to put on makeup. And they gave you boxes, and you had, if you were blonde, if you were brown, or if you had black hair. Those are your three choices. And you used the makeup from the platoon before, and I always thought, what do the men get? Do the men get some kind of class? And so those things. I don't know how it is now. Like you said, General Anderson, I'm hoping things have changed. But I'm hoping that has changed. Bonnie, what about you? Your perspective?
Yeah. So I'd be happy to answer. So when I joined, again, I was just one of a handful of women in aircraft maintenance. And to be honest with you, a lot of the men that I worked with were uncomfortable with me being there. I mean, some were overly polite and, asking things like, should I carry your toolbox for you? And I mean, if I can't carry the toolbox, I ought not be here, right? But for me, I used humor a lot. So if someone, they were well-intentioned, right? Do you want me to carry your toolbox for you? And I would say, no, but you want me to carry yours? And if you need help, I can, right? And so humor worked through a lot of those things. I mean, over time, obviously, there's many more women now in the career fields where I was. So that's good. The more that women are there, the more they just become the norm. And I just had to be flexible. I went on several deployments where maybe just 20 of us deployed and I was the only woman. I mean, so many times. And so they're like, well, everybody has to double up in billets when we go somewhere. So find someone to double up with, and I mean, the guys were nice. I didn't have any issues with that. But, I think nowadays people would go, oh, you shouldn't ask a woman to, sleep in the same room with a guy, but back then it just what I had to do to make it through. And everything is evolving and getting better over the years. And now, women don't have to deal as much with that anymore, hopefully.
Hopefully, right. Absolutely. A similar story I had to do. We had to dig foxholes, and you had to double up with the Marine next to you. So, and I was asked the same thing. The Marine next to me said, would you want me to dig it? And I was like, what? No, like I'm digging it. So yes. All right. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about transitioning. So as a woman veteran, what challenges did you have to overcome as you transitioned away from active military to civilian life? And kind of a next question with that is, what advice would you give others? So what kind of some of the challenges you overcame? Dr. Anderson, do you mind going first? Am I picking on you too much to go first? If I am, tell me. Let me know.
That's fine. That's fine. I spent the majority of my career in the reserve, Army Reserve. And as I mentioned, the last 5 years of it, I was basically on active duty at Fort Knox and at the Pentagon. But that experience, I think, gave me a flavor for what it would be like for someone who this was their entire career. I found myself, when I came back to my civilian position here in Wisconsin, a bit impatient with people. I was used to say, let's just get this done. And it wasn't quite the same environment. I had to be more patient with my staff, who I think they recognized me when I came back. They were still kind of like, what happened to you? And I also had to kind of become patient with people who knew me, who would ask interesting questions about my service. Madison is, I don't know about Milwaukee, but Madison, it doesn't have a lot of people who served in the military who look like me, who are prominent in the community. So I would get interesting questions from people about military service and women in the military, and in general, while we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, what was going on. So I had to kind of learn how to field those questions in a gentle way and not be condescending, but to try to educate and inform people. Because I think that's the most important thing we can do, is be ambassadors for military service. And so we want people to understand, so that they will perhaps advise people in their lives to consider it as a career.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you. And Dr. Krauser, you were shaking your head earlier. Anything you wanted to add to that?
Absolutely. I would agree with Major General Anderson. It's no longer the military. People do not have to do what you tell them to do when you get out of the service. So not that it was hard, but it was just a transition, because again, just used to sharing, hey, this is what I need done, and it gets done, versus having to really bring along the civilian team and say, hey, we need to get this done, and just being able to be a better communicator with our civilian counterparts is what I found to be important as I transitioned out of the military role into my civilian role, even though I work with the majority of veterans, but they didn't like the military so much. So again, it's just that they're no longer in the military. So how do we communicate and be able to get the job done effectively?
Absolutely. And doing that in a appropriate way, in a way that we can motivate others. Absolutely. Thank you. Secretary Kolar, your thoughts?
Yes, actually, while I was on active duty, occasionally I would be asked to speak to various groups, and particularly on leadership. And I remember being asked by a person, well, you're in the military, all you have to do is give people orders, you have it easier. And I said, that's actually a misconception about the military. In the military, you develop your teams. So it's not do this and everybody snaps to and follows the order. It's, hey, we're working on this. You're doing the training. You're developing the trust and teamwork in that organization that you're responsible for. So when it comes a time where you have to give that order that has to be done immediately, right now, no questions asked, your team is with you. That's what, to me, leadership in the military is. So when I transitioned after 28 years of active duty, I think that during my career, having been involved in civilian organizations, whatever town or neighborhood I lived in, and church responsibilities, that helped. I had an identity outside of the military. So I think that helped prepare me for my transition. My personal identity didn't necessarily depend on my military rank. Yet occasionally, as has been mentioned, at my first post-military job, I occasionally had to make some tough, necessary leadership decisions. And, behind my back, I would hear someone say, oh, she's like that because she's military. But thankfully, my bosses rewarded my assertiveness. And I do get disappointed when I hear that service members, and particularly women, get some feedback. You're too assertive. It's like, well, that's interesting. I think hearing the conversations that other members of the panel are having with their coworkers, with their employers, that, okay, we need to get this done. This is how we're going to do it, but maybe a softer touch. We hate to say that, but maybe that's what's taken. So my advice is stay true to yourself while also being willing to adapt to new environments.
Absolutely. And being in the military, that is something that we have been taught, is how to adapt.
Yes, exactly.
I agree.
Thank you.
That's a big piece of this. So thank you. Good advice. And Bonnie, your thoughts on this transitioning?
Sure. So over, the 2 decades that I was in the military, I did a lot of deployments. I was really involved in a lot of different efforts and campaigns and things like that. And I tell people, if we have a discussion about my military experience, that, some of the absolute best things I did in my life, I did in the military, and some of the worst things in my life happened in the military. Just some really, but they were all intense sort of experiences, intense happiness, intense, yes, we did this, or, intense just sadness at certain things that happened. And so for me, when I left the military to become a complete civilian after retiring, it was difficult to find the same level of meaning in things that I did when I left the military. It's not that I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I did, but sort of the feeling that, wow, I'm doing something that's incredibly important and lots of people are depending on me to get this right. That feeling was kind of missing when I transitioned to the civilian world. Over time, I adjusted, and I mentioned this before, that I took on a new mission, and I had to find out what my mission was in the civilian world. And to me, it's training younger folks to be really good at what they do, and to just bring those same sort of sense of just honor and duty in what you do. It doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floor or making a heart pump, right? You want to be the best at what you're doing. And through that, you feel the value of what you bring to any team. And so I always try to tell folks, as long as you can look at what you've done and feel a sense of pride and say, I did that, and together we accomplished that, I think it goes a long way. But it's just important to find where you fit. The other thing that I think is important for me, having transitioned to the civilian life, is that for a while, several years, I didn't maintain really any military connections. I'm here in Milwaukee. There's not that many military veterans here. And when I did reconnect with some military members, it was so rewarding. It was like, oh yes, this feels like home. This is what I remember and what was missing. So having those connections and maintaining those was really helpful for me after the fact.
Absolutely. That is very, very true. In working with veterans for the last 7 or 8 years, I hear that a lot from them is, I got out and I had no purpose. And that is something really to work on. And I loved how you said that, Bonnie, is whatever you decide to do the best and have pride in it, and make it your mission. Whether that be, going back to work, or finding a new position, a new job, or being a mom, any of those, finding your purpose in life is really, really important. Thank you. And our final question, just what parting words of wisdom would you give a young lady looking to enter the military service today? What would be some words of wisdom that from your years and years and years all added up of your dedicated service? What would you, Dr. Krauser, what would your words of wisdom be?
I would start off by saying, many are called, but few are chosen. And it takes a special person to be able to be a servant leader, by creating an environment that is caring for others, by being a leader by example, and not being afraid to do those things that you dream of. That is the advice that I would give someone, not just coming into the military, but I would just in general give them that information. If you're afraid, do it anyway. Don't wait until you get married to buy your dream home. Do it whenever. And so again, I would just say I would encourage individuals to do it afraid, and no matter what, just keep pushing forward.
I like that. So do the opposite. Do the opposite of how you feel. If you're afraid to do it, you should maybe go do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Move forward. Thank you. Senator Kolar.
I'd say focus on your dreams and prepare to achieve them. And as we have talked about in this last 45 minutes or so, that preparation, it's you that's going to do that. You have your mentors, you have your coworkers, but just as an example, before I reported to officer candidate school, I took a look at the physical standards that were required for men and women attending OCS, and I made sure that I could meet the male standards before I went to OCS. And I'll say that for enlisted personnel as well. Be physically prepared. You will be mentally challenged, so ensure you are physically prepared. Prepare yourself, and you will lead yourself to, again, achieving your dreams. Focus on them, prepare for the path to get you to where you want to go.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. And Bonnie, your thoughts on words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would just tell anyone who is looking to join that there are tons of opportunities, and it's really it's as far and as hard as you're willing to push and travel and go and reach. Those are the things you're going to be able to achieve in the military. And to be honest with you, I think women can achieve many times more than they can achieve in the civilian community, just because the mechanisms are in place for it to happen, so long as you're willing to put in the work and be prepared and just do your part. It's fun and it's exciting and it's difficult and it's dirty and it's great. It's just all of those things. So I would recommend it to anyone who feels like that might be a good path for them. And whether it ends up to be, a 4-year enlistment or a lifetime career, it's definitely a worthwhile venture.
I would agree. And to add to that, I would say that I think we're a lot stronger than we think we are. I know that when I went in, I had a lot of naysayers like, she's not going to make it. And I even thought that too, as time went on. 13 weeks of boot camp was tough. I mean, physically, but more mentally, and got out of that. And I was like, I am a little stronger than I think. And just to, that's part of that, that leadership too, of like showing the other men and women that, we are a lot stronger than we think or what we say we are. So thank you. Any other, I will pass this over to Dan in a little bit, but any other thoughts from the panelists, from you women about anything you wanted to share?
I would like to answer, weigh in on this a little bit really quickly. In terms of women or young women thinking about joining the service, be clear-eyed about why you're doing it. Is it because, as the Navy would say, it's not a job, it's an adventure, or they used to say, or are you trying to get money for college because you want to, be able to go and get a graduate degree at some point, or as Dr. Kausner said, you want to set aside a nest egg so you can take advantage of the opportunity to buy a home. Those are all things you need to think about. Why am I doing this? Is it just for travel? And then focus on those goals. And I certainly will agree with Secretary Kolar. I never shot for the minimum on my physical fitness test. That wasn't even an issue. I was always shooting to score 300. I wanted to max it. And that is something that people notice. So if you're thinking about entering, make sure you're physically fit. Doesn't matter what service you're in, Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army, you need to report there ready to go, and ready to to demonstrate to the trainers that you've joined up and you're dedicated and you're going to be a good airman, Marine, or soldier, or sailor.
Absolutely. And I apologize, I did forget about you. So thank you for jumping in.
General Anderson is very unforgettable.
She is. Well, I love it.
Well, I've kept my camera off here, but I've been saluted the entire time to sit this entire panel. I'm telling you, I am motivated by everybody's input. And I love that. There are some questions that have come in. We've got about 10 minutes to the top of the hour. Some of the questions have been answered, I think, through the panel, but there's just a few I'd like to just touch on briefly, and then we can kind of do a lightning round. So I won't necessarily call on you panelists, but go ahead, and I'll just give you some of so one of them was, looking back in your military career, what's your most proudest moment? I love that question, right? And then also connecting with the younger men and women in service, and is there difficulty from a generational standpoint? So those kind of are those are two separate questions, but maybe a lightning round of that. But proudest moment, and then interacting with the generations that follow us. And I'll mute again. Thank you.
So I'll say, I had the great honor of being able to be the executive officer at the Navy's only boot camp. And at the time we were graduating 50,000 new sailors in a year. And it was just phenomenal. But also during that time, as we observed 9/11, I was acting commanding officer for the week of 9/11. And again, just seeing the team come together when so much was unknown. We didn't know what the results were going to be as we faced a major threat to our country. But the day-to-day rewards of seeing recruits become sailors and begin their naval career. I greatly enjoyed my entire career, but that was the most rewarding, is to see people begin their naval service.
Yeah, I bet. Thank you.
I think for me, one of the things that I'm most proud of, I was deployed to the Middle East. I was in Kuwait during 2004 when U.S. forces were trying to take back Fallujah. And I was the production superintendent there, and basically managing the aircraft maintenance effort and to get the missions off as fast as we could around the clock, trying to get the Army and the Marine Corps folks in there. And after that big push was over, I was actually awarded a coin from the commander because we had had the single highest airlift since the Berlin airlift for that single month. So that was pretty important and pretty proud.
Very impressive. Yes, yes. Thank you.
I would say for me is when I have an opportunity to take over an ordnance unit. Although I'm a quartermaster officer or was, that was really something that was exciting for me because it was something that I had to learn about. They didn't send me to school to learn ordnance, but they sent me there knowing that I had the skills necessary to take that unit to the next level. And just taking it over, I mean, as a 24-year-old, that's really young to come in and really not have the experience, but then for those people to help you and say, you know what, we're not going to let you fail. We're here for you and we're going to help you. And, again, just having those people there and just kind of motivating you and pushing you along the way was really one of the most proudest moments of my military career.
Nice. Awesome. Impressive. Kristen?
Yes, for me, it's going to sound a little different, but when I was stationed at the Pentagon, they would often ask us to do different duties. And one of my proudest moments was when I was asked to go to Baltimore Airport to greet an honor flight. I don't remember exactly where it came in from, but I stood at the door as every one of the veterans deplaned, and I gave them all a hug. And several of them, older gentlemen who said, I've never hugged a general before, but they looked so happy and excited.
Wow.
And it was just, it was for me a wonderful moment to recognize their service and just to give back.
Wow, that is. I don't know what I would do there either if I had a general waiting out there to give me a hug. Wow, that is great. Great, thank you. Yeah, I think just to add on I think my proudest moment was just getting through boot camp. I mean, I remember my day of graduation, and when they told us to dismiss, it was like the heavens opened up, and I was I think I could feel like I was any bigger than I was. I felt like I was really ready to start my life. It really is something. So thank you all. Now that next question that Dan had, I'm not sure. Can you repeat that one, Dan, please, about generation?
Yeah, a little more on the generational side and then relating. And it also is tied back to another question that came in talking about, and it was a gender related, as a female military leader or as a female leader, and then dealing with the younger, there was a female NCO who asked the question, like, were you told to soften it because you're coming across too tough? I guess the question would be more your style of working with the generations of the younger men and women coming in, and your role. And I think that would be a nice wrap of that question, a couple of questions blended. Did that make sense?
I'll go very quickly here. I was once the deputy G3 for the 84th Division, which used to be in Milwaukee, and my boss was a colonel, full board colonel, and he called me into his office one day. He was a ranger. He'd served in a number of conflicts, but he called me in to counsel me because the majors and captains, who were all male, who worked for me, said I was mean. And he said to me, I needed to be more nurturing. And I looked at him and I said, sir, with all due respect, if I was a man, would you be asking me to be more nurturing? And he thought about it. He said, no. I said, then I'm just going to continue to move out. And he said, okay.
Great example. Great. I love it.
Thank you, General Anderson, because I want to make it clear that thankfully that didn't ever happen to me while I was on active duty. It was working, I would say, I worked at an art museum. I was responsible for security. Most of my employees were UW students. And so it was just kind of funny, you know, to hear, oh, she's military. And as General Anderson mentioned, you know, stereotypically, I'm here in Madison. I was a Dane County supervisor. And I know that I was one of the representatives of the military because at the time there were only 3 veterans on the Dane County board, and now there's fewer. So people make assumptions about you, you know, no matter how you speak, oh, because you're military. I would say get to know people, again, developing those teams and that trusting relationship. I will tell you, I absolutely so much appreciate being at Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm so pleased with the team that we have and that we're able to serve veterans and their families. So, but again, when you got to be tough, you know, you've been doing the nurturing. Today's we're going to be tough, and your teams will accept that when they know why you're doing it.
Mhm.
And also to add to that, General Anderson, I mean, she really hit it on the head, Secretary Kolar. As women, we still have to be true to ourselves. And no matter what, we still have to do what we think is right as leaders. And it's just important for us to just still, you know, we can still be those nurturers, but we need things done. And it's about presentation and how we present to other people. So again, I definitely agree with them. And I say that we should just continue to be ourselves as women and move forward.
Absolutely. Stay true to ourselves. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Bonnie, anything you wanted to add?
I just think the honesty is the best policy, right? I mean, I think in any sort of interactions I have with folks over the years, just being honest and saying, this is what it is, you know, I don't need to yell. I don't need to, this is what it is. And this is what has to happen. And honestly, almost everybody is really responsive to that. You know, they see that you're coming from a place of, I want to be helpful and good, but this is what's got to happen. So here we are. And it just generally, you know, taking that approach and not trying to sugarcoat things, because that just injects weirdness that nobody knows what to do with, right? Just being honest has always just been really helpful.
Absolutely. Honesty and transparency, I think is.
Yeah,
yes,
also, if I could just add one more thing too,
Sure.
about sometimes individuals call women bossy, and there is a ban for, you know, getting that word out of the dictionary. Again, just like General Anderson said, if it were a man doing the same thing, it would be okay. But because we're women and we're being assertive, it's a problem. So if we can start to address that being bossy thing, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but a way for us to get our point across.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to be mindful of everyone's time here, and we're about to get to the top of the hour. There's a slide I put in here for the mental health resources for women veterans. Go ahead and just take a look at that. There's quite a few resources I added. So just to be able to utilize either the VA or the Vet Center, also the Defense Advisory Committee on Investigation, Prosecution, and Defense of Sexual Assault in the Armed Forces. There's a website there I added, and then of course the Veterans Crisis Line. So Dan, I might take it over to you to kind of.
Sure. Well, I just want to make the General Anderson, I believe you've been involved with some of that work on those resources. I know we are at top of the hour. Do you want to just touch on that very briefly?
The Defense Advisory Committee on Investigation, Prosecution, and Defense of Sexual Assault in the Armed Forces is a result of the 2015 Defense Appropriation Bill. We were sworn in 2017. I've been on that committee since then. Our chair was for almost 40 years the lead prosecutor for the Manhattan Sex Crimes Unit, one of the first in the country. We also have a number of other people on that committee. And our goal is, our responsibility is to advise the Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary on these issues. We've heard from military sexual trauma victims. We've worked with SWAN, if you're familiar with SWAN. We've worked with a number of other organizations that are concerned about issues such as the Fort Hood issue. And so we provide recommendations to the Secretary of Defense. We're going to continue to do that, hopefully in the future. But this is an issue that's not being ignored, certainly by the Department of Defense. They can certainly do better. We can always do better. But they've been very open to our recommendations, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that work. But again, this is a venue, an opportunity for people to provide input. And our meetings are public. The transcripts are published. When you look at the website, you'll see some of the testimony we heard from individuals. And again, the recommendations that we send forward to the Secretary of Defense.
Outstanding. And thank you for your continued service in that area. And really all the panelists. I just want to thank you for your continued service, Secretary Kolar, WDBA. No question, you've got your statewide bandwidth that you're working on. Of course, Bonnie, working both with the medical college students in the work that you've been doing. And of course, Bertie Kauser, Dr. Kauser, not only does she serve as one of our board of trustees, which we're very proud to have her here at the War Memorial, but also she's at CBI. And CBI is part of the Southeastern Wisconsin Task Force on Suicide Prevention. And in fact, they just rolled out a new app. And in fact, in the next slide, Donna, if you could just flip that. Sure. This is in partnership with the VA mental health team, and CBI has rolled out a new app that's a resource app. And again, it's trying to get in front of not just those who have veteran status, but all those who served. And as we know, sometimes many of those are really kind of hit some hard times, and we really want to address that. So I just want to say thank you, everybody. This is, we're a couple minutes over the hour. I think we could keep going and talking, and I know it'd be just an awesome discussion with this panel. So thank you so very much. It's an honor. A round of applause, please, everybody. Just thank you, and continue the service, right? That's the goal, is just continuing and honoring. And I think you really opened some eyes and with the input today, and we will do our best to continue that story. So thank you. This concludes the March panel discussion with some amazing leaders, female veteran military leaders who accomplished so much and continue to accomplish so much. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you.